This is the second smallest country on the planet. Just 2 square kilometers squeezed between the French Riviera and the Mediterranean Sea. Monaco is so small, you could walk from one end to the other in under an hour. And yet somehow, it's home to more millionaires and billionaires per capita than anywhere else on Earth.
You know, Monaco for me is like, it's a bubble.
So what do you do when your country is full? You build a new one on the ocean. In 2024, Monaco officially inaugurated Mareterra. 6 hectares of brand new sovereign territory constructed entirely from scratch on the Mediterranean seabed. The price tag? Approximately 2 billion euros. That's roughly 2.5 billion US dollars to create a neighborhood where apartments sell for up to 130,000 euros per square meter. For context, that's around 5 times the price per square meter of a penthouse on Manhattan's Billionaires Row, which itself averages around 18,000 to 22,000 euros per square meter. But the engineering behind Mareterra is what truly defies belief. This isn't a floating platform or a temporary extension. This is permanent land, solid ground built on the open sea, designed to withstand earthquakes, rising sea levels, and Mediterranean storms. And the way they built it is extraordinary. Okay, so to understand why anyone would spend billions constructing land that doesn't exist, you need to understand Monaco's unique predicament. Monaco covers just 2.02 square kilometers. That's smaller than most airports, smaller than New York's Central Park. It's a sovereign nation wedged into a thin coastal strip, bordered by France on 3 sides and the Mediterranean on the 4th. There is physically nowhere left to build. And here's the thing, demand to live here has never been higher. Monaco has no personal income tax. It has world-class security, a Mediterranean climate, and a concentration of wealth that makes it the most expensive real estate market on the planet. The average resale price across the Principality sits at around 52,000 euros per square meter. Total residential transactions hit a record 5.9 billion euros in 2024 alone, with another 2.6 billion euros in the first quarter of 2025. People aren't just buying property here, they're buying citizenship-adjacent status, tax optimization, and a permanent address in one of the most exclusive communities ever assembled. Ultra-high net worth individuals from across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia are competing for a finite number of residences in a country that simply cannot grow. Except, Monaco has grown before. This is actually the Principality's 8th territorial expansion since the 19th century. In the 1960s, the Larvado neighborhood was reclaimed from the sea. In the 1970s, Fontvieille added another 22 hectares through a major land reclamation project. Each time, Monaco hit its limit, looked at the ocean, and said, "We'll take some of that too." Mareterra is the latest, and according to Prince Albert II, the last. He stated publicly that no further extensions are planned or desirable. This is Monaco's final frontier. So, how do you actually build 6 hectares of permanent land on the Mediterranean Sea? You don't just dump sand in the water and hope for the best. The engineering methodology behind Mareterra is genuinely remarkable. The foundation of the entire district rests on 18 enormous concrete caissons. Think of each one as a hollow concrete chamber, roughly the size of a 7 to 8-story building. These are not small prefabricated blocks. They are colossal reinforced concrete structures, purpose-built and then transported to their final positions offshore. Each caisson was constructed onshore, floated out to the project site, and then carefully sunk into position on the seabed. Once in place, they were filled with sand to create stability and weight. Lined up together, these 18 caissons form a continuous perimeter wall, essentially a giant bathtub on the ocean floor. The interior was then backfilled with hundreds of thousands of tons of sand and aggregate to create the land surface itself. Now, positioning structures of this size on the seabed with millimeter precision is extraordinarily difficult. You're working with ocean currents, tidal movement, and a seabed that isn't exactly flat. Each caisson had to be placed exactly right on the first attempt. There's no picking these things back up and trying again. The tolerances were incredibly tight, and the consequences of getting it wrong would have been catastrophic for the project timeline and budget. Once the perimeter was sealed and the infill complete, what you have is genuine solid ground, stable enough to support multi-story buildings, roads, parks, and underground infrastructure. It's land that didn't exist a decade ago, and now it's legally sovereign territory of the Principality of Monaco. But building land on the ocean is only half the challenge. That land has to survive. The Mediterranean might look calm from a yacht, but it's subject to serious storm surges, seismic activity, and, critically, rising sea levels. Mareterra was designed to withstand all three. The entire district sits elevated above current sea level projections, engineered to resist the effects of climate change well into the future. The structures are built on stilts and reinforced to handle seismic loads, meaning the buildings can absorb ground motion without catastrophic failure. This is a critical point. You're essentially building a neighborhood on an artificial island in an active seismic zone. The Western Mediterranean experiences regular low to moderate earthquakes, and while Monaco isn't sitting on a major fault line, any structure this expensive and this permanent has to be prepared for significant ground movement. The caisson perimeter wall also acts as a breakwater, protecting the interior from wave action. But the design goes further than just defense. Mareterra incorporates over 9,000 square meters of solar panels, rainwater harvesting systems, heat pumps for climate control, and more than 200 electrical vehicle charging stations. The district was designed to align with Monaco's stated ambition of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Around 800 to 1,000 trees were imported from Tuscany to create a Provençal maquis landscape covering more than 40% of the district's surface area. From above, it doesn't look like reclaimed ocean. It looks like a Mediterranean garden that's been there for decades. Now, from engineering the land itself to what sits on top of it, and this is where things get truly staggering. Mareterra isn't just a feat of marine construction. It's been designed as the most exclusive residential address on Earth, and the architects involved reflect that ambition. Renzo Piano, the man behind the Shard in London and the Saint Pompidou in Paris, designed the district's signature building, known as Lorenzo. It's shaped like a ship, elevated 5 meters above ground on columns, and contains approximately 50 apartments, each with a minimum floor area of 400 square meters. That includes a quadruplex penthouse that defies the imagination. Norman Foster, Tadao Ando, and the French firm Volad and Pister also contributed designs across the district, while Michel Devigne handled the landscape architecture. In total, Mareterra comprises around 110 luxury apartments, up to 4 townhouses, and roughly 10 villas. And here's where the numbers become almost absurd. Prices have reached 100,000 to 130,000 euros per square meter. At the upper end, that means a modest 200 square meter apartment would cost 26 million euros. Lorenzo's complex? You could do the maths. For context, the Larvado neighborhood where Mareterra is situated saw average prices per square meter jump 48% in 2024 alone, reaching approximately 97,600 euros. New build properties across Monaco now average 36 million euros per transaction, compared to 6 million euros for resale. The gap between Old Monaco and New Monaco has never been wider. And yet, every single unit in Mareterra sold out before the public inauguration. Market demand was so intense that the entire supply was absorbed by ultra-high net worth buyers before most people even knew it existed. Some units were reportedly resold shortly after completion. Rent yields in Monaco hover around just 2 to 3%, which tells you everything you need to know. Nobody's buying here for income. This is wealth preservation at the most extreme end of the spectrum. Now, this all seems extraordinary, but as you might expect with a project that involves dumping thousands of tons of concrete and sand into the Mediterranean, it hasn't been without controversy. Critics have accused Monaco of pursuing what some have called the Dubaization of the Mediterranean, prioritizing luxury development over genuine environmental stewardship. The construction displaced marine habitats, including approximately 384 square meters of Posidonia oceanica seagrass, a protected species that plays a crucial role in Mediterranean marine ecosystems. While the seagrass was relocated and artificial reefs were constructed to mitigate habitat loss, environmental groups have questioned whether these measures are truly adequate. The fundamental tension is hard to ignore. On one hand, Mareterra markets itself as an eco-district. Solar panels, electric charging, rainwater harvesting, imported trees. On the other, it's a luxury real estate development built by filling in the ocean with concrete. The environmental credentials are real, but whether they offset the ecological cost of the construction itself remains a genuine debate. To be clear, Monaco's government has invested heavily in sustainability messaging around the project, and the artificial reef program does present a serious effort. But the international press has been divided, with some outlets celebrating the innovation and others questioning the ethics of building billionaire housing on destroyed seabed. Despite the controversy, the numbers suggest Mareterra has already transformed Monaco's economy. Since the project agreement was signed in 2015, the development has generated more than 1.2 billion euros in tax and registration revenues for the state. Monaco's total land area grew from 2.02 to approximately 2.08 square kilometers, a 3% increase that translates to billions in new property value and tax revenue. The Grimaldi Forum, Monaco's major convention center, gained roughly 6,000 square meters of modular event space and 2,000 square meters of outdoor space thanks to Mareterra. The expanded facility posted record turnover of 24 million euros in 2024. It's already secured hosting rights for major events, including the Blue Economy Conference and UN Ocean Forum sessions, events that bring international attention and spending to the Principality. Prominent Monegasque families, the Pastors, the Briantes, the Kaziragis, alongside European investors like Lopez de la Osa and Meyer Bergman, were among the financial contributors and early buyers. This wasn't speculative foreign capital. This was Monaco's own establishment betting on the project's success. This brings us back to the question posed at the start. Is spending $2.5 billion to create 6 hectares of ocean floor real estate actually a gamble? On paper, the maths works. Every unit sold. Tax revenues exceeded €1 billion. The convention center is thriving. Monaco's position as the world's most expensive property market has been reinforced, not diluted. Mareterra didn't crash prices. It pushed the Larvado district alone up 48% in a single year. But the deeper question is whether this model is sustainable. Prince Albert II has said there will be no further extensions. Monaco has reached its physical and perhaps philosophical limit. You can only take so much ocean before the environmental and political costs outweigh the financial returns. And there's the broader issue of what projects like this represent. When a country builds new land exclusively for the wealthiest people on the planet, it raises uncomfortable questions about whose cities, and in this case entire nations, are really for. Monaco has always been explicit about its identity as a haven for the ultra-rich. Mareterra simply makes that identity literal, physical, and permanent. Yet from an engineering perspective, what was achieved here is genuinely extraordinary. 18 concrete caissons the size of apartment buildings sunk to the seabed with precision. Hundreds of thousands of tons of fill material, creating permanent sovereign territory. Buildings designed by 4 of the world's most celebrated architects, sitting on land that a decade ago was open water. More than 9 years after the agreement was signed, Through complex marine engineering, environmental mitigation, and construction at the absolute frontier of what's possible, Monaco found a way to grow when growth should have been impossible. Whether you see it as visionary urban planning or the ultimate expression of wealth inequality, Mareterra proves once again what the construction industry is capable of when the ambition and the budget are truly limitless. Thanks for watching Hard Hat Industries, your source for the massive engineering and heavy iron shaping our world. If you appreciate the scale and technical complexity of these builds, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakthrough.